everybody, it's Minus here from Pantheon Plus, and above me right there, over here, is Hayah. What's up, Hayah? How are you? How cold is it in Canada right now?
Freezing cold.
Yeah, I understand. It was, it got down to about 55 here in Florida. It was really cold. People at my job were actually coming in winter coats. It was amazing. And still had shorts.
Really?
Yeah, no, legit. This guy had a jacket on that got zipped up underneath with a jacket that zipped over it. Like that, like he was in the tundra. And he was going to go, I don't know what he was doing after. Hopefully he was flying to Canada. But anyway, guys, welcome to another video here. Today we talk about Paladin. And I am very excited because I have played a Paladin in pretty much everything that has had a Paladin. So pretty excited about this.
Pally.
All time. Even when I say I'm never playing Paladin again, there I am, Paladin. Okay, so let's go ahead and jump right in because there's a lot to talk about with this class, and I don't want the video to be super long, which this one might be a tiny bit longer than the other videos, but we'll see. So when we start talking about Paladin, first of all, two races, dwarf and human, is a pretty interesting combo. Only two. What do you think about that?
I think that's as it should be. They're the holy, well, not holy races, but they're the two races you'd see as Pallies, as this holy warrior kind of guy.
Yeah, it's interesting. When you have a class that can only be played by very limited races, you wonder what that's going to do to class play. You probably, if you really wanted to, you could have made it so Archai could be them if they just worked it into the lore. But one of the interesting things, if you don't know, as fans of the game, is that Paladins were former clerics. They've transcended into what we call that Paladinhood. Does that work?
Yeah, Paladinhood. I like
into
it.
Paladinhood. And it's interesting because it's referenced a lot in the lore of the Paladin and about the history of being a cleric and sort of how the class plays. So it's pretty interesting. And we've seen classes that have just primary resource, and we've seen classes that have some sort of generated resource. And this class actually has 2 generated resources, which is pretty interesting. Listed as tank and utility, obviously this is going to be a pretty pure tank class with a little bit of healing capability due to the cleric roots. So I was going to introduce and talk a little bit about Wrath and Reckoning points. The easiest way to really explain it is that the Wrath is generated by combat abilities and killing enemies, and you'll be filling almost like a bar with your Wrath. But the Reckoning points seem to be 3, you have up to 3 of them, and they seem to just generate over time or because certain things happen, but they're used for heroic abilities. So you're probably not going to be overloaded on Reckoning points. You're actually probably going to be saving those for big moments and things like that. So what do you think of that, considering we've seen a lot of classes that have had 1, this one has 2? Does that concern you at all?
No, I kind of like it. It kind of works similar to how the Dire Lord had the stances, so I can see it in that vein. Not that it's just a turn one of these on and it's done. It's kind of counter to that power as far as a tanking class comparison. I think it's going to be cool.
Yeah, it should work. It just depends. I'm interested to see in gameplay how the reckoning points gather, and how often you have them. I think there's a lot to be said with that.
Yeah, like a multi-minute cooldown or something like that. Maybe it's how it's going to work.
Yeah, it does seem that's possible. So all armor available, and then they use one-handed edged and blunt and two-handed edged and blunt. That makes perfect sense to me. I don't think I'd see a paladin run around with a staff, so I'm good with that. All right, so let's get into the abilities. We talked a little bit during our cleric video on how we really enjoyed the fact that there was a lot of lore in the abilities, and it starts off right away on this one. So it's a passive ability that when undeath is nearby, flames of celestial light will begin to flicker around the paladin. So it's kind of cool. If something's nearby and you can't quite see it, you'll start glowing. Venger's Vow is another one, a passive ability. You cannot be stunned by undead enemies. It's a pretty powerful tank ability.
Huge advantage for tanking in undead areas.
Yeah, it reminds me of when Paladin in Wrath of the Lich King, going to WoW, but in Wrath of the Lich King they were just so powerful. It was awesome. Knight's Persuasion. This is a really cool ability. I don't know if you've had a chance to pre-read this one. I kind of skimmed over it. It's really cool. But essentially, you convince an enemy to lay down their arms for peace. So if successful, the target, which has to be humanoid, will go friendly to you. And the higher charisma is, the more likely it's going to happen. And if you do it, because it uses Wrath, it will restore the Wrath used and give you a Reckoning point.
So is this like a mez, or is it a charm, or how friendly?
In my head, and that's usually a very scary place to go, but in my head, the way this works is the enemy turns into like a green mob, or a non-aggressive mob that's just walking around. Okay. You do your thing, and as long as you get out of there in time, they just go about their business when they turn back into an aggressive mob. So that's how I see it. I don't know if that's how
that makes the most sense, actually. Yeah.
So it'll be pretty cool if you get an ad on you and you just really don't have the ability to deal with it. You do that, you move the rest of the mobs away from it, and then you go back about your business. It's pretty cool. So Atone, sacrifice half your health to resurrect a fallen ally. If you are below half health when you use this ability, you'll be brought to 1 point of health and left in an Everzilla state, obstructing healing effects on you for X amount of time, and it'll use 2 of your 3 reckoning points.
So this is a real dire needs, like emergency. Don't use this unless it's, absolutely going to save the raid group, whatever kind of ability.
Yeah, I think, if you're in a transition phase and you're at full health, if there are transition phases, that's a good thing too to use. But yeah, you'll have to make sure you're smart about it, because you can't just pop it and die and not be able to be healed. That's not good. All right, Fiery Aegis. Every time I got to say that word, I think
Aegis.
Yeah. You send a wall of celestial flame rushing forward, purging you and all poison and all poison and disease effects while knocking down enemies in its path. So it's like a cone, dispel, knockdown.
I like it.
Yeah, if it's super flashy, it's got all kind of yellow holy lights. I'm down with that.
Generator, so that's pretty sweet.
Yeah. Wrathful Aegis. You radiate celestial flame that burns and laps at your enemies, generating X hate every second for all enemies in front of you. AoE hate? I don't think we've seen that yet, have we?
No, also a generator. Super powerful.
Mm-hmm. I like that. Sorry, I was taking a sip of beer there. Brilliant Aegis. You release a concentrated burst of celestial light, blinding your enemies for X duration. This ability can also serve as a brief light source. So blinding them, it'll be interesting to see how this game does blind. Are they gonna stand there all dazed? Yeah, are they gonna be dazed? Are they just not able to hit melee attacks? There's a lot of different ways I've seen blind work in games, so it's interesting to see how effective that'll be, if at all.
I really like how you can use it as a light source if you need to, like a camera flash or some sort.
Yeah, you're in a really dark hallway, you just burst it and kind of get a glimpse of what's going on. And Golden Aegis, you consolidate celestial light around you in a sheer barrier, making you invulnerable to all damage. So 1 reckoning point, just an invulnerability cooldown. Okay, so now we get into a couple of different categories here that are sort of interesting. I'll be honest with you, just reading it, I'm kind of not sure how the bottom portions will work, but maybe I'll answer my own questions here. So the first one here is Lightful Avenger. It's a passive ability, and in combat against undead enemies, your attacks will do additional divine damage and have a higher chance to critically hit. Your wrath gains from abilities will be increased. Your wrath gains from damage inflicted on undead will be increased. Undead who strike you in combat will take divine damage, and your critical melee strikes will generate reckoning points. In addition, while in this state, all damage you receive from undead enemies will be reduced by X% before your normal mitigation is counted. The amount of damage reduced will be converted to health and spread evenly through the group as healing. This effect cannot occur more than once per second.
So this is just like, if you're fighting undead, you need a pally. Like, hands down, you're taking one of these guys.
I got goosebumps, if I put thinking alt. I'm not trying to get ahead of myself, but this, I'm just getting goosebumps. Oh, this is really cool, nerd.
Game's not out. This guy's planning his alts. We're good.
Okay, so Avenger Hymns. As a former cleric, as we discussed, look at that. It's like we Say something, and it's for a point. You remember that the hymns that once filled the chambers of the Order. As a paladin, you have left those halls in pursuit of justice and carry those songs and their celestial power with you into battle. So they aren't activated. So once activated, these abilities. So here, I don't like it. I'm just going to say that. Why?
You don't.
I don't like it. Paladins don't sing songs. We all know who sings songs. Bards. So this would be a great time to just scrap the whole video and we'll do a bard theory crafting video. No, I'm kidding. It's cool. Could we have named it something other than songs, please? Pantheon? Yeah, Visionary Realms? Hey, maybe we call these tombs, right? Or tombs of the Order. Songs? Not going to cut it. Okay, so there are 3 of them. They're activated and they persist until you cancel. So it's sort of like the Dire Lord stances.
Actually, yeah. So this negates everything I said earlier about the Reckoning Points being a counter to.
Yeah. Well, sometimes we make mistakes. Just kidding. The Hymn of Devotion, all your direct healing abilities will have a small heal over time effect added to them. So it's kind of an offy tank thing. Hymn of Justice, 50% of the wrath you spend will be refunded when you crit, essentially, with healing or damage. And Hymn of the Stronghold, your group will receive X% of your overall armor class added to their own. Well, reading that, it looks like I would be using Hymn of the Stronghold all the time if I'm a tank.
Yeah, pretty much.
So I guess as an off tank or a utility role in a group with 2 tanks, the other 2 would probably have some.
Only if you're fighting non-undead mobs.
Yeah. You will never be the off tank to another class if they're undead. So it's good to know. Okay, so this last one I don't understand. It's called Evensong. It's an ancient hymn. Again, can we please change that to an ancient tomb? Reading something. Scripture. Scripture is a good one.
Versus.
Amplifying the next ability they use. So what's interesting is, I guess, I don't understand how this works, but so it could either Glory and Honor, the healing is applied to you as well. If you use a healing spell. Miraculous Shimmer heals the group members for X% of their missing health on the next ability use. Atone, resurrected allies will have more health. So if you cast it and then res, they have more HP. Arcing Light jumps to all group members before fading, and damages all enemies within X meters. It's an interesting ability because it's not worded very well on the website.
I can relate this to WoW again. The Mistweaver Monk had an ability that was some kind of a tea, and then drinking that tea before you would cast certain abilities would change how they acted, and I see this being similar, but you use one of these before doing a different, so it's 1-to-1 instead of 1 tea to any spell. I see it kind of like that. Okay. It just amplifies certain effects when you do these before that.
So you just hit Evensong and then cast something, and it's going to have an effect.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's my at first glance kind of what this does thing.
Yeah, that makes sense. Let's jump into the melee abilities. We have Incite your enemy into battle, basically taunt. Yeah, that's a standard taunt. Dire Lord, Death Knight. Dire Lord just had the hate stance. They didn't have a direct taunt, did they?
No, I believe they did. I don't remember what it was called, though.
I should probably...
Or they had one that did one over time?
Yeah.
As well?
I'd have to relook at it. I should watch my own videos.
We should take notes before we do our wrap up at the end.
That's not fun. Okay. You mean like while we're doing, we'll be doing it and be like, hold on, guys, write this down. Never saw this before.
Yeah.
Fervent Strike, a powerful melee attack. If your enemy is stunned, this attack will critically hit and generate a large amount of hate, and it's a generator. Lance of the Lightful, a sudden bolt of celestial light impales your enemy before dissipating. This ability has a high chance to stun enemies that are fleeing. And that's a big thing, that you will have a lot of enemy types that are going to run. Light Guard, you imbue your shield with a celestial light, increasing your chance to block for a short time. If using a two-handed weapon, this ability will increase your chance to parry. While Light Guard is active, your blocks and parries will stun the attacking enemy. Okay, so the ability in itself is fine, but do we have a hint there that maybe we're gonna have two-handed pally tanks?
Yeah, I hope so. I think two-handed tanks are awesome.
Yeah, that would be pretty interesting. I'm not used to seeing a paladin without a shield, though. I don't know if I like it from a lore standpoint, but it'd be kind of cool. I guess in an off-tank role would be really good. Pommel and cross. You strike your enemy with the pommel of your weapon, followed up by a sweeping strike that damages all enemies in front of you X meters away. The initial pommel strike has a chance to stun. So it's a stun with a frontal damage, which is pretty cool.
Like that, he's just gonna bash him with the handle.
And then just like swipe them. Yeah, that's pretty cool. It's a cool ability. Glorified self. You send forth a shining image of yourself to battle for a short period of time. The length of time your image will detain an enemy in combat will be okay. So it's like a mez. You send like an image of yourself, and the target fights that image of you until it dissipates, and then they come back to the group. That's a really cool pull mechanic if you're gonna fight them where you're pulling from. So let's say like you had a doorway and you had a guard on the left of the door and a guard on the right of the door. You send your image at the one on the right and you pull back the one on the left and fight the one on the left until that right one breaks. That could be a really cool pull ability.
Nice split mechanic, yeah.
Yeah, that could be neat if it works that way. So pretty cool. Just jump in, on anything you want to add, please. It gives me more opportunity to finish my beer. So, Miraculous Shimmer, you leave a shining image of yourself behind to detain an enemy, while you move with miraculous speed to a location near the group member with the lowest health. The length of time your image will detain enemies, so that's interesting. So another version of it where you leave it behind to take over what you're doing to go help someone who's low HP.
How does it do anything when you get to that damaged group member?
I'm thinking that you're going to have to then taunt something off of that damaged group member.
Okay, maybe. It's just a movement thing to get you closer to him to then do whatever you want.
It's a lot like Warrior's Intercept.
Okay, yeah.
That's probably the way that'll work, which is cool. I mean, any movement for a tank, I mean, you could use it strategically to put somebody with lower health near something you need to get to quick, which is maybe not always the smartest idea. Hey, you're really low health. Can you guys stand next to that really big thing that we need to kill quick? Thanks.
Well, no, but you could match this with like a cannibalize ability that a shaman would have, where they hurt themselves to gain mana, and then, yeah.
Chastening Blow. You imbue your weapon with a searing light as you swing it into your enemy. This attack is able to strip profane and curse-related enhancements from the enemy. So debuff for profane and curse. I don't think we've seen profane yet.
No, I don't. Just brood stuff,
That's interesting if that's its own class or it's encompassing of a few different types. Hollowed Assault. Paladins can evolve their chastening skill ability into Hollowed Assault, allowing them to strip the marks of high mortals from their enemies.
What's that?
I don't know. Those must be like... those must be like really high-end buffs for bosses. And it's... my guess... Again, oh yeah, there it is. I don't even have to guess. It uses one reckoning point. So to buff up those...
And Wrath.
Yeah. So you're already doing that Wrath usage with Chastening Blow, but use the reckoning point to make it stronger or adjust the ability. That's kind of neat. Edict of Celestial Fury, you recite the Sacred Word of Power. See, that's what they should be doing, reciting words. I don't know, not hymns. I'm a little shaken. Just a little shaken on this.
This too shall pass. You'll be fine.
Basically reflect the next melee attacker spell back at the attacker. So
that generates a reckoning point.
Yeah.
Get some timing down on.
A warrior had an ability, spell reflect. And listen, I'm not going to say I'm the greatest player of MMOs in the world. I'm probably far from it. But as a warrior that tanked a majority of the content we went after when we did, I didn't ever use that ability with any consistency whatsoever because it was just so awkward to use, and it looks like this is going to be the same thing. It's like, I'm going to hit this and hope that in the next 3 seconds he hits me with a fireball. And the problem is people say, well, in boss fights, you're going to know something's coming. But a lot of boss abilities weren't reflectable.
Right. So it depends on how it's implemented in that sense.
Yeah, so this one, it was an ability I really didn't like as a warrior. I'm just gonna be completely honest; it felt needless. So hopefully this is a little bit better. Edict of Celestial Force. You recite a sacred word of power, hurling your target backwards up to X meters. The distance they are pushed back is based on your strength and wisdom. That's cool. Get away.
Positioning tool.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. And you know what's really cool about that? So imagine that you plan that out with an enchanter. And you're like, hey, I'm going to mez that one. And you just throw it. And then immediately as it lands, the enchanter
Yeah,
has
they
that.
drop their stuff on it.
Bam, mezed. That's really neat. It's I wonder if it deals damage to it. It doesn't say that, right? So if it doesn't deal damage, I wonder if like they get mezzed in midair if when they land, like
that'd be super cool.
they'll still be mezzed. Edict of Celestial Might. You recite a sacred word of power, pulling enemies within X meters to you. Oh, it's like Crusader. It's like Crusader in Diablo, and that is amazing. I love it. So just bam, pull everything in. That's really cool. Let's get the healer. Massive healing there. That's a really neat ability. I'm really excited about that. The last one here, Edict of Celestial Authority. Recite a sacred word of power that stuns your enemy for a short duration. So this ability cannot be resisted unless it's resisted. No, I'm just kidding. Unless it's immune to stun. So it's a pretty reliable stun. So that's all your attacks. Before we jump into the couple healing abilities, is there anything that stands out? We didn't mention at all that all these things are amplified with Undead.
I really like there seems to be this theme of push and pull with, manhandling your enemies or man pushing your enemies, or, you know what I mean? Like there's a lot of, I'm going to put you here and I'm going to pull you in and then I'm going to stun you and then I'm going to use whatever it's called to do double damage to you while you're stunned. And there could be a neat flow to the combat with this tank.
Yeah, it's a lot of control. And I don't mean control like a control class, but it's a lot of getting your mobs where you need them to be, being aware of the environment a little bit will really help. I love it. Really, really cool. Looking at them, like you said, I think I'm 100% on with you there. There's a decent bit of AoE throughout their abilities, which is pretty cool. So they look like they're going to be a great AoE tank and an amazing undead tank. So
yeah.
And then they do have 4 healing abilities, being former clerics. You have Oath, Flame, a swift burst of Celestial Flame that lightly heals your defensive target. See that word, lightly. And it generates Wrath. What?
A heal that nice. What I mean, right?
So it's got to have a cooldown, right?
Maybe.
If that doesn't have a cooldown, I don't care how small it is. If you can infinitely cast it, that's crazy. Arcing Light instantly restores a small amount of your health, then jumps to 2 additional group members, healing X% more each jump. Again, this game doesn't penalize you for healing more. Yeah. It's so funny because there's been so many games where when it heals a second or third target, it loses.
So is less.
See, community matters. The bigger your group is, the more people you...
the more healing you're going to do.
It's fantastic. Living Light, you send forth flames of celestial light all around you, healing all members of your group. Nice little AoE heal. And
that's a reckoning point one, so it's got to be a bigger one to me.
Yeah, like a big heal, you mean?
Big group saver.
Yeah, I'm loving this. Glory and Honor for X duration and Y% of the damage you deal to your offensive target is converted into healing for your defensive target. That's awesome. So you can... I love the whole offensive and defensive target thing. We talked about that in one of our original videos where you can actually, as a healer, you can target the boss and still have group targets.
Based on which spell you cast, it'll affect one of 2 targets.
Yeah, that's really cool. So, I mean, that's all the abilities for the Paladin. What are your thoughts? We did Dire Lord and now we're doing Paladin. So what are your thoughts wrapping this up so far? Comparing it to Dire Lord or what you kind of looked at with that? I mean, what do you see in here?
You know me and Pallies, we have a rough past. I'm not usually a fan. But I got to say, I am very much liking this iteration of the Pally. For that control aspect, the brute, handle the mobs and put them where you need them and then do funny stun stuff to them. And then, of course, that you're just like this ultimate badass when you're fighting undead. It's just good.
Yeah, I think a lot of paladin classes across a lot of MMOs go for this holy, morally correct, righteous being. And I'm not saying that this game isn't doing it, but sometimes that comes at the expense of not being super powerful.
Yeah.
In World of Warcraft, the paladin had less health than most enemies. They weren't as strong damage as most of as most other classes, not enemies. So, they were always seen as like this hybrid class that was penalized for being hybrid. In pretty much every game, I never really saw a paladin as the main tank, with the exception of certain periods of time where they really stood out. Other than that, they were usually middle of the pack, if not lower. I don't know what the content's going to look like, and I don't know a lot about all these abilities other than what we've read. But this paints a picture for me of a paladin that is just what you just a pure badass. Like a holy, fights going on, a paladin comes onto the battlefield, and the enemy group's like, shit. And that's what this class feels like. And I absolutely freaking love it.
Yep. And there's like lightning and light flashes and all this stuff going on, and mobs are getting thrown around and pulled in. It's going to be cool to see.
And specializing versus undead, if you're going to specialize against anything in a role-playing game, that's a good one, because usually no matter what's going on with the story, there's usually
an undead.
Yeah. It's not like you have these powers against Dragonkin and you're like, oh, fantastic.
So that'll be fun in one particular place.
Yeah. Then you have the expansion, the death of the Dragonkin. You're like, oh, wonderful. There's no more left. So I am... I'd say that of all the videos we've done, I really like Enchanter, and that's probably one of the classes I will play if there's no Bard. I love this class, and I wasn't, before I read into it and before we did this video, it wasn't on my radar. Even though I've always played a Paladin, I absolutely love this. So it's really going to be a challenge for the Warrior class to one up this class, because I feel like Dire Lord I have completely forgot exists. I know there's gonna be a lot of Dire Lord fans out there that are like, boo, Dire Lord. But the Paladin just looks like a pure badass, and I love it.
Holy badass.
Holy badass. Okay, cool. Anything else before we close it up?
Nope.
All right, everybody. So that's it for the Paladin class. I hope you guys enjoyed it. It looks awesome. This is definitely an alt class for me. I always play a tank. I'm getting ahead of myself from the video, but here it is. This class looks sick. So as always, we ask you, if you haven't followed us yet on Twitter, please do. And if you haven't hit the sub button on YouTube and you enjoy this video, please do as well. We're going to be doing a lot more content. We're going to be wrapping up the last of the classes. Our next video will be the Warrior video, and then we'll wrap up tanks and get into DPS. And next week, we will be finally putting out the video to unveil the project we've been working on, that we've been teasing like crazy. Today on Twitter, I had one of our followers tell me that I am more of a tease than his girlfriend. But he did put... Well, he did put ... I like it. So, yeah. He knows. So we'll be putting that video out probably before we do our Warrior video. We'll probably do our Warrior video on Thursday. So between now and next Thursday, you should see the video showing you guys what we've been working on this whole time. So again, if you get the opportunity to hit that sub button, please do, and follow us on Twitter for all our announcements. In the comments, leave any comments you want. Do you want to tell me that my hair looks outstanding? Go for it. You want us to know how cold it is where you live? Go for it. You want to tell us how much you hate us? Go for it. It'll make you a better person. You can get that off your chest. If you want to tell us that we did a good job, that'll make us feel a little better. So any comments you want to leave or any suggestions, please do. It helps us grow. We're two noobs at this. This is our 8th video. So we've done 8 videos ever as a team, and we got a lot to learn. So teach us. Teach us. Thank you guys.
Plus, help you.
Help me.